In the past couple of weeks, I've found myself coming back to the Hitman World of Assassination trilogy, asking myself what it is about the game that makes it so unique and so special when compared to the plethora of stealth games around today. Why it's incomparable to any other game, and why, despite the story being very short, around 8 hours per game, its potential feels limitless. As you probably know, the first game, Hitman The World of Assassination, was a weird one. IO Interactive was still suffering the consequences of Absolution, the most awful game in the series by far, and then they decided, hey, you know what? We're going to release the levels episodically, so you can only have one map on release, and then one more map the next month, and one more the next, and so on. It makes sense why they did this looking back. But the episodic release of Hitman hindered the game rather than helped it. It's not that it was a bad game, shit, it was a great game. But the fact that people had to wait 1 month for every map after paying $60 up front annoyed fans. Luckily for us, IO listened and released Hitman 2 with all the maps on release day. Hitman 2 refined the formula and best yet ported over all the Hitman 1 maps onto the newer game, meaning that you didn't have to go out of Hitman 2 to play the old levels. Rather than adding heaps of new features to the game, like most developers do, IO decided to make subtle tweaks and allow the older maps to be played on the newest game. We'll dive into the levels later. But for now, let's just focus on what each game added to the trilogy. Hitman 3 came out this year, and like the past two games, little to no changes were made except for the addition of a camera to Agent 47's lineup. Again, IO Interactive just added new maps and refined and perfected the engine, leaving us with a true masterpiece that ended the series. I like to think of this trilogy compared to other game series as a TV show compared to a series of movies. Let's take The Mandalorian for example, compared to the Fast and Furious franchise. The Mandalorian follows on from Season 1 to Season 2 with no change in production, or very little, whereas Fast and Furious' story spans across a huge change in production, which means that while they're doing the same thing, showing a story across movies, the change in production means it doesn't flow as well as a TV show would. Not that Hitman's story is great or anything, it's pretty average. They're just like, hey, there's this bad guy, but you have to take down the bad guy. Here's a bunch of other bad guys we want you to deal with. No. Where Hitman truly shines is its replayability. You complete a mission, but there's a bunch of different ways you could have done it, so you go back for more. And because there's so many maps on Hitman 3, you've got a huge library that you can never get bored of. Where do you want to go? Italy? Okay. Mumbai? Sure. United Arab Emirates? No biggie. And the fact that all the maps from the previous games are here as well adds to the experience. You want a bit of nostalgia from old maps with the newest game? That's not a problem with the Hitman trilogy. You can't do that with many other games. If you wanted to go back to the Assassin's Creed 2 map, you're going to have to play AC2. You can't just load it into the Unity game or something. That was a bad example, but you get what I mean, right? With Hitman you can. And your game seamlessly connects to the others and adds to your profile and XP for progression. The way it's carried from game to game is more of an update than an actually changed game. And it was risky for IO Interactive to do, but they absolutely nailed it. Achievements on the games as well are also addictive. Sure, you can play fun and crack up as you blow the target sky high, but the game rewards you more for being quiet, not being seen, and being fast. Now, we can't do a Hitman video and not talk about the maps. There is quite literally a map for everyone. I mean, they included Aotearoa, New Zealand, which is better than a lot of map makers. Even better, they included my hometown, which is sick. One of the timed contracts looked a lot like one of our politicians, and that was in Hawke's Bay, the New Zealand map. The target was also a politician, so it looks like IO did their research. Let's quickly go through what I think are the best maps in the series. Obviously, Sapienza, Italy. Many people consider this to be the best map out of all the games. It's super well put together, as well as just being a fun map to explore. and interestingly, it's the only map out of all the games where there are walls that are able to be blown up. Secondly, for me, it has to be Hokkaido, Japan, where you're in a super secure hospital and have to take out the man on the operating table and the head of security. You don't get any gear at all in story mode, which proves it to be a challenging map for sure. On to Hitman 2, we have Hawke's Bay, which is the tutorial sort of level, I guess, and I like it, well, because I used to live there, and they remembered about us, little old Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's a small map, and it proves to be a sick map for the tutorial to take place in. Then we have Whittleton Creek in the US, which I like because it's like the Blood Money map, A New Life, which they shout out too because in story mode, the mission's called Another Life. Then we have the Isle of Sigale, I hope I'm saying that right, in the North Atlantic, which is a weird culty mission, but because they added verticality to the map, and the events make the map super memorable. The two post-launch added maps, New York and the Maldives, are also pretty good, but by far the Maldives map comes out ahead for how spread out and interesting the map is to explore, as well as the mission itself. Finally, in Hitman 3, honestly I didn't like the maps as much as in the previous two games, but that might just be nostalgia talking because Dartmoor, England is amazing, with the murder mystery story as well as the huge English mansion you get to explore. And the last map on my list is Argentina. The winery is amazingly well spread out and detailed, and allows for so many different strategies to eliminate the targets. While these maps are amazing and the stories, the maps are great to speedrun if you're into that, or make your own contracts with the contract creator, as well as the ever-changing escalation modes, the deluxe edition stories, and much, much more. The game is always adding new features, and it doesn't look like they're going to slow down anytime soon. So what makes Hitman so great? Is it the endless replayability? Is it how nostalgic it can be, but new at the same time? I don't know, but what I do know is that Hitman is one of my favourite games ever. It goes between categories. It's a sandbox, a stealth game, a strategy game, a competitive game, and it's a great game for completionists and speedrunners alike. Hitman will always be one of the greats in my eyes, even if it's not innovative, and new, because it's consistent and refined.